Hey all. Okay, so this episode starts what is known as the lab arc in the series as guys in hazmat suits roll up to Sakamoto's store and somehow mistakenly kidnap Lou thinking she's Shin, which already you gotta love the incompetence of the antagonists on this one, but like they're just a bunch of bumbling goofballs and whatnot. But jokes aside, one thing I love about this episode that I didn't fully appreciate when reading this arc in the manga for the first time is how snappy it is at delivering information to us, as just within the opening argument between Shin and Lu, and how she basically did touch a nerve with her saying she can never relax around him because of his powers, and how that one line kind of already laid the groundwork that this arc and this episode what was basically was going to reveal to us about Shin and what led to him getting his power, and what's going to lead to him what the reveal of what is going to lead to him the reveal of what's going to lead to what led to him getting his powers to begin with. And and on that topic, though, because the anime has the virtue of adapting more than one chapter into an episode, this episode just delivers it one hit after another, as after the confrontation between Shin, the assassin known as Seba, we not only get a taste of the kind of experiments the lab's been doing with Seba's invisibility, but once we arrive at the lab itself, more and more pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place that not only reveals what's going on with the introduction of the antagonist of the arc, Mr. Reindeer or Kashima, but also what the lab used to be when Shin was growing up there, not only through Shin's explanation, but when being reunited with the scientists he grew up with, we see he has rather fond memories and kind of a warm relationship with them. So the question then becomes, what caused the falling out? What happened in Shin's past for Lu's words to affect him as much as they did? And it's more than likely all starts with the man that was also revealed, that was revealed to be trapped with Lu in this episode, simply known as Asakura. Now, in, be- in between the introduction of Kashima, as well as Shin and Taro exploring the museum in this episode, was Kashima as well as Shin and was definitely this episode was definitely like splicing together a lot of different bits and pieces from a couple different chapters in this arc, and normally when anime does that, it can sometimes make the pacing feel a little disjointed and kind of all over the place. But in this case, and while there was a feeling that there was a bit of a feeling of not being able to kind of rest in a moment as much as I think I would have liked. In this case, it still does feel like it's making things flow a lot more naturally and allowing a moment to sit and stew just a little bit longer before hard cutting to a joke. And one great example of this right out of the gate for me, and for those who watch my reviews of the manga know, I was not a big fan of Lou in this arc, but this episode kind of made me realize a lot of that was the way Suzuki kind of hard cut to a lot of moments with her in the middle of a more serious moment that maybe we needed a little more time with. Like there's like in this episode, it's the scenes are kind of rearranged in a way where it allows the more serious moments to kind of breathe a little bit before we basically hard cut to basically Lou to any kind of comedic moment with Lou, for example, and I kind of appreciate that a bit. But even but there's also one scene that was cut completely out from the anime of Shin and Taro like interrogating a lab guard to find the entrance. But in all honesty, I do kind of like the anime cut that moment out because it did feel a little contradictory for Shin's character, in the sense where for someone who grew up in this lab, who grew up in this environment, the fact that Shin wouldn't know where the entrance is just had me saying, always did kind of have me saying, wait, you grew up here, but you don't know where the entrance is? What? But by cutting it out, by cutting just that bit out, it does kind of allow it to play out in a way that does feel like it makes Shin feel more observant, more competent, and just overall just kind of aware of his surroundings and aware of and just seeing how aware he is of the layout of the lab, you could say. Now, in saying that, after reuniting with the scientists, Shin and Taro find themselves up against the first secondary villain of the arc, a psychopath simply known as Matt Hotaguchi. And I can't lie, I'm definitely curious to see if my opinion has changed all that much from this fight now that some time has passed. Because for those who haven't checked out my manga review of this fight, and to put it in blunt terms, I, for the most part, like this fight up until we got to the climax of it, and because this is one of those weird, the fight against Hotaguchi is one of those weird fights that had a great setup and even kind of a great payoff, but it went in a bit of a weird tangent at the end where it felt like it threw the initial rules of the fight out the window. That's kind of that was kind of always my big hang up with this fight, and it'll be interesting to see if I still feel the same way, to be honest with you, because yeah, it's one of those fights that just makes you feel like when at this point where Suzuki was at that point I was talking about, it felt like Suzuki didn't entirely know how to end the fight, so he just kind of made it all about a fist fight basically in the end, in order to end it. And of course, before I forget to mention the end, before I forget to mention it, the end of the episode shows Shiba and Osaragi entering onto the scene, and it's kind of hard to talk about their involvement in this arc without giving away spoilers, because in truth, despite how cool their introduction in this arc was, their actual involvement is very minimal. Like, it's the kind of thing where their involvement in this arc is all set up for stuff to happen later down the line. The only thing I will say, though, is that they do get one very cool but very brief fight scene in this arc. That's kind of... I do also want to talk a bit about Kashima, though, because one thing that was made clear from Jump is the man is an unhinged lunatic. Like, you can tell from his speech pattern that the way he talks, he's barely holding on to his sanity, and it's in some ways, even though for many those can be the most one-dimensional type of characters, those in when you really think about it, the kind of people who are like a hair who are basically psychopaths but also a hair breadth away from holding on to their sanity as well, are the most dangerous people to deal with, although maybe not so much for Taro, because let's be real, if Taro fights this guy, like Kashima's done for, like, I'm just saying it out loud. And yeah, not much more to talk about with this chapter, although before signing off, I do want to talk about this core of the show as a whole, because initially I was thinking that this core would end with the lab arc, and in some ways I still do think that. But one thing that's kind of thrown a bit of a wrench into that idea for me is the fact that this episode adapted chapters 19 to 20 with bits and pieces of chapter 24 mixed in, and so it's this, in a sense, it's we're kind of already, at least we're already like 70% done with this arc as the arc ends at chapter 31. Now, I'm imagining the next episode is gonna cover the entire fight with Hotaguchi and possibly splice that together with Shin's backstory. But like the bottom line is, I'm trying to get at the bottom line I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to get a bit of a read on just what how the next couple episodes are going to be adapted, and no matter how I do the math, there's an empty space missing after this arc is finished. So the next couple episodes before the last promise to be very interesting ones, to say the least, because the only way I can see this kind of working out is basically two chapters and an episode beyond this point. But even then, that still leaves a little bit of room. So like I honestly don't know. I'm kind of, again, I don't know how to figure the math on this one, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Punch Roll. Be sure notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Money, signing off. Later, everyone.